Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at someone everyone seems to have an opinion on, Elon Musk.
Right. His name means innovation, sure, but also controversy, huge wealth.
Exactly. And you hear all sorts of things. So the big question we're asking is, what's really behind his rise? Is it just, incredible luck? Or is there something more deliberate?
Well, that's what's so interesting. The sources we've been digging into, they really lay out something like a blueprint. A set of actual strategy.
Like a blueprint, huh?
Yeah, it moves past this sort of popular image and shows this very distinct, high-risk, high-reward playbook he uses. We're not just talking about the companies themselves.
We're talking about the thinking behind them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to pull out that core strategic mindset, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding his, relentless strategy, his long-term view, and, frankly, unparalleled execution.
Okay, so our mission today, unpack Elon Musk's billionaire blueprint, 7 strategies that built his empire. We want to give you, the listener, a really clear sense of the thinking that took him from, coding games at 12?
Yeah, something like that, all the way to electric cars, space, AI, even neurotech. It's quite a journey.
It really is. So by the end, hopefully you'll have a better grasp of the why behind his impact. Let's jump in, and as we go through these, maybe think about how they might apply, or maybe not apply, to your own goals. All right, let's kick things off with strategy number 1. Solve big, real problems. This feels foundational.
Totally foundational. He doesn't seem interested in small tweaks. He goes for the huge humanity-scale challenges.
And there's that quote, right? Something about getting paid.
Yeah, it's pretty blunt. You get paid in direct proportion to the size of the problem you solve. Simple as that, almost.
So tackling climate change with Tesla, or making us multiplanetary with SpaceX.
Or AI safety with XAI, brain-computer interfaces with Neuralink. These massive goals, they naturally do a few things.
Like what?
Well, they attract the best people, right? Top talent wants to work on big stuff. They attract huge amounts of capital. They get tons of public attention.
And they build long-term value because the problems themselves are so fundamental.
Exactly. It just creates this powerful momentum from the start.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If you aim that high, the whole path just looks different compared to tackling something smaller, more niche.
It's a totally different game.
Okay, building on that. Strategy number 2, vertical integration and first principles thinking. This seems key to how he solves those big problems.
Oh, absolutely. It's about rethinking entire industries, not just competing within them.
He talks about first principles thinking. What does that actually mean in practice?
The quote is something like, boil things down to fundamental truths, then reason up from there. So instead of looking at what competitors do and copying or improving slightly,
You break it all the way down.
ask why things are done a certain way. What are the absolute base components, the physics of it?
Can you give an example?
Sure, Tesla. They don't just, buy batteries off the shelf and put them in a car body.
Right, they build their own gigafactories.
Exactly. They make their own batteries, write their own software, build their own charging network. That's vertical integration.
And SpaceX.
Same idea. They make something like, over 85% of their rockets themselves in-house?
Because rockets were just too expensive otherwise.
That was the core question. Musk asked, essentially, what are rockets made of? Aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. What do those materials cost on the open market?
So if the raw materials cost X...
Why does the final rocket cost 100X? And then the huge leap?
Yeah.
Why are we throwing them away? What if we reuse them like airplanes?
First principles. Breaking the assumptions.
Precisely. And doing it yourself, vertically integrating, gives you massive control, efficiency, and usually huge cost savings.
It sounds incredibly powerful, but how practical is that thinking for, say, someone starting a small business or tackling a project without billions behind them?
Well, the scale is different, obviously, but the mindset isn't necessarily about spending billions. It's about questioning assumptions.
So asking why relentlessly.
Yeah. Why is this process done this way? What's the fundamental need? Could we achieve it radically differently, maybe cheaper if we ignore how everyone else does it? It's a way to innovate, really, at any level.
Interesting. Okay, let's move to strategy number 3. Insane work ethic and focus. This one. Yeah. Well, it's intense.
Understatement, maybe. Yeah, the dedication's legendary, and the quote associated with it is pretty direct.
Work like hell.
I mean, you just have to put in 80 to 100-hour weeks every week. That's quite the standard.
And the sources say he's kept this up for decades.
Reportedly, yes, for decades. And it's not just him. He expects that kind of intensity from his key people, his core teams.
And the logic behind it is productivity.
Kind of a simple math in his view. If your competitor works 30 hours and you work 100,
You'll achieve in, 4 months what takes them a year?
that's the idea.
Yeah.
Just sheer velocity through brute force effort. But it's probably not just hours, right? It's focus.
Ruthless prioritization?
Seems like it. Cutting out anything non-essential. Single-minded focus on the goal. Extreme delegation sometimes, too. It's about speed.
That level of sustained intensity is hard to fathom for most people. What do the sources say about, the human cost? Burnout. Keeping people.
They definitely touch on it. It's described as a demanding, no excuses kind of culture. High pressure, high stakes.
So it's not for everyone.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
The sources suggest it kind of self-selects for people who thrive in that kind of environment, who are totally bought into the mission. Turnover can be high, no doubt.
But those who stay.
They achieve incredible things, partly because of that intense shared focus. It filters for a certain type of person.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Let's look at strategy number 4. Learn fast and build across domains. This is one I find particularly fascinating.
Yeah, how does a guy with no formal degree in rocket science end up running SpaceX? Or automotive engineering with Tesla? Or neurotech?
Exactly. How does he do that?
Two main things seem to be at play, according to the sources. First is something called learning transfer.
Taking lessons from one area and applying them somewhere else.
Pretty much. Seeing underlying patterns, like maybe applying rapid iteration cycles from software development to building and testing rockets.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second thing?
Just incredibly intense, direct learning. He dives deep.
So not just reading a summary.
No, like reading the actual manuals, talking directly to the engineers, the experts, asking relentless questions, experimenting constantly.
Getting his hands dirty, basically.
Yeah, reports of him being on the factory floor, in design meetings, even apparently in code reviews sometimes. He seems to actively construct his understanding by engaging directly with the details.
That's a powerful way to learn. Very active, not passive. Question everything, try things out.
It seems to be key to how he can master, or at least become highly conversant in completely new, complex fields so quickly.
Okay, which leads naturally into strategy number 5. Attract top talent and inspire loyalty. Because you can't build these things alone.
Definitely not. And Musk apparently gets this. There's a quote, "A company is just a group of people. It's as good as its people."
So how does he get the best people? And keep them, especially given the intensity we just talked about?
Well, first, the sheer audacity of the missions. Make life multiplanetary. I mean,
It's a big draw, isn't it? Bigger than just, increasing market share.
absolutely. It attracts people who want to work on something historic, something potentially species-altering.
What else?
The speed. Moving fast, breaking norms. That appeals to a certain type of high achiever who might be frustrated by bureaucracy elsewhere.
And leading from the front, does that play a role?
Hugely, it seems. The stories of him sleeping on the factory floor during production hell at Tesla, things like that, it shows commitment.
That he's in the trenches with them.
Exactly. That kind of visible leadership, combined with the giant vision, seemed to create a very powerful pull for the kind of super smart, driven people he needs.
But we also hear about pretty tough management style sometimes. High expectations, maybe sharp feedback. How does that fit with inspiring loyalty?
Yeah, the sources acknowledge he can be, let's say, demanding, maybe even polarizing. His tolerance for perceived failure or slowness seems low.
So high churn sometimes.
Can happen, yes. But the counterpoint seems to be that for the people who do align with the mission and the pace, the goal itself becomes the primary motivator.
So the loyalty might be more to the vision than to the person necessarily.
That seems to be a key part of it. They're loyal to the idea of going to Mars or transforming energy, and he's the one making it happen, however demanding he might be along the way.
Interesting distinction. Okay, strategy number 6. Risk big. Bet on yourself. This one feels core to his financial story.
Oh, absolutely core. We're talking about enormous personal risk here.
Especially early on, right? After PayPal.
That's the prime example. He sells PayPal, makes a fortune. His share was around $180 million after already making bank from Zip2 earlier.
Which was $307 million in 99, PayPal $1.5 billion in 02. So he had serious capital.
Serious capital. And what does he do? He puts almost all of that $180 million into SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. These incredibly risky ventures back then.
Companies that could easily have failed.
Absolutely. Most people thought they would fail. And the sources say he stretched himself so thin, personally.
That he had to borrow money for rent, even after making all that.
That's the story. It sounds almost unbelievable, but it highlights the principle.
Which is?
If the mission is worth it, burn the boats. Leave no retreat. Go all in.
Wow. And that conviction, that willingness to put everything on the line.
Made him the largest shareholder in these companies he was building from near scratch, which, as they succeeded, is what compounded into his massive wealth.
So the wealth wasn't the goal, it was the outcome of betting everything on the mission.
That's how the sources frame it. And look, he hasn't stopped, right? Neuralink and the Boring Company in 2016, buying X in 2022, launching XAI in 2023.
Still making huge bets, even when he's already arguably won.
It seems to be a continuous pattern. Massive investment, new ventures pushing the envelope.
It really makes you think about risk. What's the line between conviction and just recklessness? What gives someone that level of belief to bet literally everything?
Deep conviction in the mission, presumably.
Yeah.
And maybe a different calculation of risk versus reward than most people have.
Okay, final strategy, number 7. Control the narrative and vision. This is about communication perception.
Yeah, building a global presence. And Musk is, well, undeniably a master of using media, using memes, building momentum.
How does he do it? What are the tactics?
Well, most obviously X, formerly Twitter. He uses it for everything, doesn't he?
Direct marketing, talking to customers, fighting critics.
Shaping public opinion in real time.
Yeah.
Bypassing traditional media gatekeepers. It's incredibly direct.
But it's more than just tweets, right?
Oh, yeah.
How?
He's a storyteller. He paints these vivid, inspiring pictures of the future, Mars colonies, self-driving cars, changing cities, humans merging with AI.
Big, compelling visions.
Exactly. He makes the future sound exciting, inevitable almost.
Yeah.
And that does something powerful.
What's that?
It turns followers into fans. And sometimes fans become customers or even investors. It creates this whole ecosystem of belief around his ventures.
So controlling the narrative isn't just PR. It's fundamental to building the momentum needed for these huge projects.
It seems absolutely crucial. You need people to believe in the vision to attract talent, capital, and public support on the scale he operates.
Okay, so bringing these 7 strategies together, what's the big picture?
Well, looking at this blueprint, it really drives home that his path wasn't about luck or, just being born rich. He wasn't.
It was choices.
Conscious choices, deliberate strategies, thinking bigger, working harder, risking more. It's a specific way of operating based on this belief that the mission justifies almost anything.
That really is the core takeaway, isn't it? Whether you personally agree with everything he does or says, or admire his style.
Which many people don't, obviously.
Yeah, right. But separate from that, the strategic thinking itself, this blueprint, it offers some pretty powerful lessons for anyone who wants to make a big impact.
Absolutely. And I love that quote from one of the sources. Something about ordinary people.
Ah, yes. I think it is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. That's powerful.
It really is. It frames it as a choice, a mindset you can adopt.
So a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe carry with you. We've talked about this mindset, this willingness to take huge risks for a grand mission. If you were to really embrace that blueprint, what humanity-scale problem would you choose to solve?
That's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about.